changing and what we need to do about it. That is why I created the Climate Book. With over 100 contributors, it aims to tell the full story and the holistic picture of the climate crisis and the different crises we face. And I started it about 2 years ago. Back then, we were in the beginning of the pandemic. Our societies were undergoing massive changes with a purpose to keep people safe. At that time, many were already talking about going back to normal. But we are never going back to normal again.
We are never going back to normal again, Greta Thunberg says, and believes the world should be in perpetual lockdown to save the planet from climate crisis. Ladies and gents, welcome back. I did a poll just last week on Twitter and on the YouTube Communities tab just to get people's feel for where they stand on this issue. And well, the response was pretty interesting. So I put it out there. What is a more pressing issue for you, the environment or the climate? Now here on Twitter, this is the first time I ever got a ratio. There was more comments than there were likes, but there was 572 of you voted here on Twitter, saying overwhelmingly that it's the environment that you are concerned with. Lots of comments, of course. Many people saying, yes, of course, the economy is the biggest issue. Why did I not give an option for the economy? That was the overwhelming majority of all the comments here. None of the above, things like that. Now, one Twitter user here giving a list of all the emergencies that we've been given over the past several decades, actually. So going right back to 1966, the oil being gone within 10 years. Well, that never happened. Dire famines forecast by 1975 and 67. That never happened. Overpopulation will spread worldwide. They're still worried about that one. It looks like we may be in population collapse in the next decade or so. Everyone will disappear in a cloud of blue steam by 1989. That never happened, obviously. Going forward, ice age by 2000. That never happened. New ice age by 2020 or 2030. Well, they're not even predicting that anymore. No more ice age. Oil depletion in 20 years. That never happened. Space satellites now show new ice age coming fast. Oh, that didn't happen. You go a little bit further, and now peak oil in 2000. They were predicting in 1980. That never happened. The peak oil seems to be a trend here. Peak oil by 2020, peak oil by 2010. Again, all of it never happened. Children won't know what snow is. They were saying in 2000. No, well, they know what snow is. They for sure know that. Britain will be Siberia by 2024. That never happened. Manhattan underwater by 2015. That never happened. Arctic ice, or the Arctic will be free of ice by 2018. The same year, the climate genius Al Gore predicts ice-free Arctic by 2013. Again, never happened. None of these things ever happened. Hey, Greta, I need to convince them it's really going to happen this time. Anyway, so I put the same poll out on YouTube's Communities tab. It was a much bigger turnout with 5,100 voters. Again, same results, 98% of people saying the environment is more of a pressing issue. Now, some people were saying there is no difference between the climate and the environment. I would argue that is not true. The environment would be your immediate surroundings. This is the nature around you, or the place where you live, or your immediate environment. This is what is referred to as the environment. So nature, how clean it is. Actual pollution, we're talking about actual pollution polluting the waters, pollution polluting soil or air, things like this. The climate is a different story. This is about how the weather patterns are on the planet, and the overall globe, and the weather patterns would be considered the climate. Now, there's a lot of there's a lot of argumentation happening around the world when it comes to climate versus environment. We all understand what polluting the environment is and what that looks like. And there's nobody out there that says we want to pollute the environment. We want to do that. But what we've been told over the past years is that there are pollutants that, are contentious. The idea of CO2 polluting our atmosphere. CO2 has always been in the atmosphere, and there's contention within the scientific community and people who are climatologists, actual climatologists, not just anyone who just happens to have a scientific degree of one kind or another, on the degree to which man-made climate changes have been happening. Now, like I showed you, a lot of predictions have been made and a lot of them have not come true. And now we're facing a situation where we have governing bodies that want to change the way of life for citizens around the world and how things go, what people will be eating in the future. And a lot of people are not happy with the drastic controls that are being forced or fostered upon us in the case for things that have been predicted and have not come true. So there's a lot of people that are are upset, let's say, well, I mean, it would not be an exaggeration to say that people are upset about this. Now, I did run a poll again to get people's opinions because they said, hey, well, what about the economy? The economy is the bigger issue. We're more concerned about this. So I ran a separate poll. What is a more pressing issue for you, the economy or property rights? And of course, a much different outcome in this one for sure. 35% of the people voting on this poll saying the economy, where 65% of the people voted said property rights are a bigger concern. A lot of people having really good takes on this one, saying essentially, well, what kind of an economy would you have without property rights? And a lot of people sharing good memes and things like that. I love the tough, no obvious solution polls for me, property rights. I'd rather live in a capitalist recession than a communist boom, absolutely, because, there is a way out of recessions for sure. There's no way out of communism. Well, not a good way. Anyway, on YouTube, we're in the same poll. 8.6 thousand votes on this one. 32% of people saying the economy. 68% of people saying property rights. And again, this is a really concerning issue for me, especially here in Canada with what we've been seeing from the government. And the government, of course, trying to use a conflict that's happening overseas, one that's we're actually not involved in, and that would be the Ukraine-Russia conflict. Of course, the Canadian government picking sides and showing their support for one thing over the other. But this isn't my concern. My concern is the government coming in and saying that they want to take sanctioned individuals. These are political terms. An individual who is sanctioned is not someone who has any crimes that necessarily they've committed in Canada. Now, what they want to do is they want to sanction these individuals, but then they want to go further, and any assets they have in Canada, they would like to seize these assets, remove them from the person's possession or their property, remove it, and then do other things with these liquidated assets. Now, it's asset forfeiture, and it's being brought to us under the guise of going after bad guys from Russia. Now, where will that be used? You open this Pandora's box, you open this door, and we will, see a loss of our own property rights in Canada. And we have the Justice Minister of Canada himself, David Lametti, saying months ago that, you don't have a right to property in Canada.
Minister Lametti, I want to just ask you about C-19 and the idea of seizing and selling off Russian assets. The idea that some observers say that is on shaky legal ground. How do you respond to that?
Well, look, we'll obviously tailor the provisions so that it could withstand a court challenge. You don't have an absolute right to own private property in Canada. it is there are steps that are taken when expropriations happen at whatever level of government, and we'll be sure to stay within those boundaries.
We'll be sure to stay within those boundaries that we set on what property rights we remove from individuals. Saying in that statement that Canadians don't have an absolute right to property. Now, this has caused a lot of issues in Canada with our own economy and with the trust that we have with investors that would like to invest their property into an economy and actually see a return on their investment. Well, if there's the chance of losing everything that you put in because, well, the Canadian government wishes to seize those assets for one reason or another, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you could always be seen as a bad guy in somebody's books. There's always some degree of separation from you and some bad guy anywhere. We all know that Canadian truckers were seen as bad people in the past year, just last year, as they went to Ottawa to protest against government measures, government policy. They had a disagreement with a policy in Canada, and protesting against that, they were demonized, and then, their property was seized. Now, their property was withheld, but not ultimately taken from them. This new measure will actually give the government the power to not only freeze your bank accounts, but actually take the money from your bank accounts and then do as they see fit with that. Now, that's a big issue for me. And I would like to know your opinions on this, and I'd like to see you guys leave a comment in the comment section down below. What is your opinion when it comes to the economy versus property rights, but then also when it comes to the environment versus the climate? It would seem that the government themselves is conflating the two. I think that most people have a concern about their environment. They do not want pollution to be happening. They don't want bad, dirty waters. They don't want all these issues to be taking place. But the climate is another issue that seems to be a bit more contentious. And maybe, just maybe, the predictions have not been also accurate. Anyway, leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think about this, and we'll see you in the next one. Keep on trucking.